Hey book nerds, welcome to my channel. So today I'm filming my mid-month wrap-up for June. I have been sick, I'm afraid. I've been ill for about 2 weeks now. I've had a bad chest infection, so I apologise if I'm a little bit croaky. I'm just about well enough to start filming again. But yeah, so I'm doing my mid-month wrap-up. June's been an interesting month because of me getting ill. Nothing has gone to plan, so I haven't read a lot at the start of the month, and then I was just stuck in bed with nothing to do, so I've read a fair amount so far. I've read 9 books so far this month. 2 of them are graphic novels though, so they're really short, and 2 of them I won't be talking about in this video because I'm going to do a separate wrap up for Buzzwordathon, which I'm taking part in. I was also meant to be taking part in Queer Lit Readathon, but that didn't happen because I got ill. So now I'm just kind of planning to read generally queer books throughout June anyway. So the first book I read was for Queer Lit Readathon, and that is What If It Says by Adam Silvera and Becky Albertelli. Yes, I actually read a physical book for once. I was so torn on what rating to give this book, but in the end I had to go with my heart, and I did give it 4 stars out of 5. This book is essentially a romance about these 2 teenage boys who meet under less than ideal circumstances, and then they kind of try to start a relationship and it's not quite going to plan. There is Arthur and Ben. So Ben's just broken up with his serious boyfriend, his first serious boyfriend, and he's mailing back his stuff to the post office when he meets Arthur, who is in New York City only for the summer. He's doing an internship, and they kind of have this spark, so there's a limited date on the relationship regardless. The reason I was torn on this book is I think the writing is phenomenal. I really enjoyed reading it. I couldn't put it down. I wanted to read it in one sitting. The problem is it is a romance, and the relationship is kind of the worst. It's not the worst, but you read from both of their points of view, and it alternates narrator between chapters, and Arthur's just so much more into Ben at the start, and because you're reading from both of these points of view, it was really awkward for me to read it, because it was you'd read about how much Arthur was loving the date and how much he was into Ben and how he thought it was going brilliantly, and then you swap to Ben's point of view and Ben's just like, oh no, this is a terrible date, this isn't going to go well. And that was really awkward to read about. It was an unusual experience for me. I didn't quite enjoy that part of it. It stressed me out a lot. I got secondhand stress. And then as a relationship, it's hard for me to root for them because they just have so many problems so early on that I just, the early part of a relationship is meant to be the best part, and they're already having all these problems, and I just feel like it's not a good relationship. But because the writing's so good, and I like Arthur a lot, the characterization isn't great. I did get them mixed up. It was more which isn't great when you think that they're both the narrators, but it was more their friends that I got mixed up, because they both had a straight male best friend, and I kept forgetting which of them had which friendship group. So the characterization I can't really say is fantastic, because I did keep losing track of that. Then again, I was getting ill, so maybe it was to do with that. But yeah, the writing's just so good that I had to give it 4 stars, but I would be aware of this if you're going to read this, and if your primary reason for reading this is because you want to read about a cute gay romance, this isn't really a great romance. So yeah, I did love it, but it's difficult for me to place my feelings about it. The next book I read was Blue Lily Lily Blue by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the 3rd book in the Raven cycle. I read the first 2 a couple of months ago, and I did enjoy them. I think I gave them both 4 stars in the end, but I was the second one in particular, I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't follow the story very well, and I wasn't getting what it was doing, This, on the other hand, was fantastic. I really liked this one. I gave it 4.5 stars out of 5. I just thought it was so much more straightforward than the previous ones in the series, and I was really invested in the characters. It was really easy for me to follow what was going on, and I understood the story. And Maggie Stiefvater's writing style in these books is just so great. It's like kind of tongue-in-cheek, it's very personable, and I really enjoyed reading this. I'm looking forward to the 4th book, and I hope it's more similar to this book than any of the others in the series have been. Blue, who is the female kind of main character, is just like one of my favourite characters of all time. I just love her. She's so sure of herself and like weird, but not in a way that it comes across as she's actually weird. It's just kind of natural for her to be that way. And yeah, I really liked this. I'm looking forward to finishing the series. The next book I read was an ARC, and that is The Honeymoon by Rona Halsall. This actually is out now. This came out on the 7th of June. And sadly, this was not a good book for me. It's a thriller. It's about a woman who marries a man who she's only known for 2 months, and then they go on this honeymoon. But in the airport, he's changed the destination of the honeymoon without telling her. And then when they arrive, he starts having all this troubling behaviour, and he's basically kidnapped her and she's stuck there with him. That is technically the premise, but that's not the type of thriller it is, and that's why this was such a big disappointment for me. I gave this 2 stars out of 5. I will link my blog post down below if you want more detail on why I didn't like it. But essentially, I was hoping for a thriller about her trying to kind of escape from her husband. She's been held hostage by her husband, and it's like this kind of closed atmosphere, really intense thriller. And that's not what this is at all. She is held prisoner by him, but without giving too much away, she kind of escapes pretty early on. And my main issue with this is that none of the characters act like real people, particularly the protagonist. She is just baffling to me. So she marries this guy after 2 months, and he is very controlling and possessive, and he basically tells her that the reason he's kidnapped her is because it's not safe for her to leave this island, that there's some people who can't find out where she is because she will be in danger. And he doesn't give her any more detail than this, and she just kind of goes along with it, and nothing in the book phases her. So I'm going to get into some fairly detailed spoilers now, so I'm going to put my hand up, but when my hand goes back down, the spoilers will be over. So basically, after she escapes, she goes back to her gran, who is ill, and she's been looking after her gran, and her gran is just like a terrible person. So she tells her gran that she's basically been kidnapped by her husband, and her gran's like, oh, well, I don't want you living here because I hate you, so you need to go back to him, really. Our protagonist then goes to the bank, and her credit card doesn't work because someone has closed her bank account and taken all her money. She reacts to this as if she's found out she's run out of milk. She's like, I'll solve it tomorrow, I'll phone someone about it tomorrow. And then she contacts her job, and she finds out that someone's handed in her notice for her, so she doesn't have a job either. And then she goes to her apartment, and she's been locked out of her apartment, and someone forged her signature on the lease, and someone else is moving into her apartment now. So she doesn't have a home, she doesn't have a bank account, and she doesn't have a job. And she just kind of doesn't care about any of this. She just sort of goes along with it, and then her gran buys her a ticket back to visit her husband again, and she's like, sure. She goes on the plane to go back to her husband, who is responsible for all of this. That's all the spoilers I'll go into in this video, but I strongly urge you to read my blog post because I do spoil the whole plot in my blog post, and it is one of the craziest things ever. So I'm going to put my hand down now. But yeah, just like the last 30 pages of this book, about 20 different things happen, and there's 2 time skips. And it's just not, it's a terrible thriller, it's not good at all. the writing's not good, the story's not good, the characters are really not good, and yeah, sadly I really did not enjoy this book. So this is when I got ill and I didn't read anything for ages, and then I got sent an ARC of the Tea Dragon Festival by Katie O'Neill, which is a graphic novel sort of sequel, more like a companion novel to the Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. So I read the webcomic online, which is the Tea Dragon Society. You can buy it as a graphic novel, or the entire thing is free online as a webcomic. And I read this, and it was just the cutest thing ever. It was the perfect thing I needed to pick up my entire day. I was feeling really ill, really sad, and it's just this adorable webcomic about this world where there are creatures called tea dragons, and they're like tiny dragons that are basically cats. And they have leaves on their head, and you can trim the leaves to make tea from them. And it's just this super cute world. The first one and the second one are completely unrelated plot-wise. You don't need to read the first one to read the second one. The second one is an arc, and it comes out in September. So it's the second one again, the Tea Dragon Festival. It's much longer than the webcomic. It's got a more detailed story, and it is only available as the graphic novel, so you can't read this one online for free. And yeah, I gave both of these 5 out of 5 stars. They're so lovely, and they're really diverse as well, and they're diverse in a lot of different ways. They're not kids' graphic novels, I'd say, but they are kid friendly, so kids could read these and really enjoy these. I think adults could read these and really enjoy them as well. I think if you like tea, if you like dragons, if you like cute fantasy worlds, it's just a really easygoing set of graphic novels. The artwork is beautiful. I'll show you the cover again for that one so you can see the artwork properly. There's non-binary representation, there's queer representation, there's whole rainbow of ethnicities represented in here, and yeah, it's just such a lovely world. Like, that is the world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where I can have pet dragons and make tea from those dragons, and yeah, it's really cute. Again, I've got a blog post for the second one, so I will link that down below if you want more detail. It comes out in September, I think. I can't remember the exact date, but I strongly recommend you at least check out the first webcomic because it'll brighten your day. I then took part in 2 buddy reads, which was a really great experience for me. I have done a buddy read previously, but these were kind of the first properly planned buddy reads where we did like a number of pages a day and then talked about those pages, and it was such an enjoyable experience. So the first one I did was The Girls by Emma Cline, and I read this with Catherine from Cat Talks. I will link her YouTube and her Twitter down below. The Girls is kind of a contemporary story with sort of thriller elements, and it's about this woman who, when she was a child, she got involved in what was essentially a cult, and then this cult did something terrible. And it's mostly told in flashbacks about her childhood and her experiences in her life, and then her experiences with the cult. And that's kind of all I can say without giving anything away. I really enjoyed this book. I did give it 4 out of 5 stars in the end. And I think that the start was a lot stronger than the ending was for me. At the beginning, like the first maybe 150 pages or so, it's quite a short book, but the first 100 to 150 pages, there was this brilliant sense of like creeping tension that was woven into the story. So the writing style is very kind of poetic and very detailed in descriptions, which was a problem. It did make me feel a bit queasy sometimes because I do have OCD, and it's like got some bodily things, not a lot of bodily things, but some bodily things. It kind of threw me. There's also a lot of sexual stuff in this, which I wasn't expecting, but massive warnings for sexual content and kind of undertones of abuse. There is stuff in this that is definitely abuse, but it's not written in a way that the character is interpreting it as abuse. But the writing style's this really great kind of... Normally I don't like overly descriptive writing, but it really worked for this. And it really created this tense atmosphere that made me want to read on. Unfortunately, this kind of lost its momentum about halfway through the book, and I didn't really pick it back up again. By the time you reach the ending, you are aware of everything that is going to happen, which does kind of dissolve some of the tension, and Catherine mentioned that it dissolved some of the tension for her in particular. But I still really liked it. On the whole, I think it raises a lot of interesting questions, and in some ways it was a great buddy read because there was so much to kind of talk about and different perspectives you could give on situations. And yeah, I would recommend it. I think it's one of those Marmite books. I think you'll either really like it or you'll really hate it. But thankfully I quite enjoyed reading it. Other buddy read I did, and the final book I'm going to talk about in this video, is The Perfect Stranger by Megan Miranda, and I read this with Nicole from A Beautiful Chaos of Books, who I will link her Twitter and her YouTube down below. I talk about her quite a lot on this channel, so you've probably heard of her before. But this is a thriller. Shockingly, we picked a thriller to buddy read, and this is by an author who I've not had much luck with in the past. She wrote All the Missing Girls, which I read last year and I really, really hated. And to my complete surprise, I really loved The Perfect Stranger. I think Nicole was less keen than me. I recommend checking out what she thinks of it when she talks about it in our wrap-up and stuff. But for me, this has a lot of thriller elements that I really, really like. I didn't guess what was going to happen, which I was pleased by, because I had certain suspicions that things I don't like in thrillers were going to happen, and none of them did, which was great. It had a lot of momentum to it. I think that's what I enjoyed. It kept me going. This was harder for me to put down each day and only read the set number of pages, because I was so eager to find out what was going to happen next. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars, by the way, which is like the highest I pretty much rate thrillers. And yeah, I don't want to overhype it, but I really enjoyed reading it, and I thought it was well written, which surprised me again, because All the Missing Girls was definitely not well written, and it was a really well crafted thriller, which again All the Missing Girls wasn't. So I'm very pleased that I liked that as much as I did. And obviously buddy reading with Nicole was great. I love talking to her about books. So yeah, that is all the books I've read so far in June. Like I said, I'll be doing a Buzzword-a-thon wrap-up probably in like a week or so, depending on when I get the chance to film it. Where I'll be talking about some other books that I've read. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. It helps me out massively. Let me know how June's going for you so far. I hope you're all having fantastic reading months, and I hope to see you next time.